Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 3, harmonizing light and shadow to embody your mystical power and purpose. I'm your host, Washela Sananda, and today I'm delighted to introduce you to Zoe Davenport. Welcome, Zoe.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
I'm happy to have you.
Yeah.
So, right before we jump in, I will share a little bit of your background so people know what you're up to, and then and we'll go from there. Zoe Davenport is the founder of the Haven Collective, a high frequency container for creators of the New Earth paradigm. She is a gifted, multidimensional channel, psychic visionary, energy expert, author, speaker, and coach. Her gifts started at a very young age, often communicating with the deceased, star beings, and spirit guides. She had a powerful awakening in 2008 and has never looked back. Zoe is here to activate leaders to their full potential through online courses and private mentorships, and so much more. So that's just for starters. I would love to kind of get into your origin story. How did this all begin for you? And you said you had some experiences at a young age with multidimensional beings. I'd love to kind of hear what your experience was like. You're frozen. Okay, there you
Hello.
are.
Start talking about multidimensionality. Wi-Fi is like, oh, it's too high. It's too high, these frequencies. It's just
Down a little.
calling in our angels of clear communication, clear Wi-Fi for the recording and process of these conversations. Well, quite funnily, when you were asking me that question, the first memory that popped into my head was I used to have one of those little, like toy kitchens, and I would speak light language with my guides, and they'd be playing tea cakes with me and stuff, and like we'd have the little table, and I would share that with people, and they would just say, oh, they're your imaginary friends, and but then they kept following me around, and then they weren't, and sometimes I would be like led in my bed and the wall would disappear.
Hmm.
And it would like open as they were imaginary friends, but they weren't. They were my guides. They were parts of myself that were coming in to help me on my path. And I remember one of my earliest memories was, I think I was about 3, and it was my birthday. And it, it always felt like a super special day on my birthday. Now I know because it leads up to Lionsgate, because my birthday is on the 6th of August and Lionsgate's the 8th. So it's when it's really, really potent. And I remember seeing a rainbow in the sky on my birthday. And I remember looking at that rainbow and knowing that there was just an unbelievable amount of magic in the world. And I didn't really obviously I was 3, so I didn't really understand it then, but I did understand that there were things that I was seeing and I was aware of that others weren't aware of and they weren't seeing. And I feel as I went through my experiences, I tried to share that, but obviously people, they don't see it. So they would, write it off that it's your imagination. But I always knew I was different. I always felt that I was not of this planet. And, my dad used to tell me like he was an alien. And I was, that he's kind of gone through his awakening a bit, but definitely a lot of his shadow at that time. So I didn't really want to own that was some of the things he was sharing with me. But definitely kind of over the years, as I got into later kind of school life, I had all these interesting gifts, but they weren't understood at school either. So I had a photographic memory, and I was able to kind of read without reading. So I could pick up, I could pick up and absorb the information of a book. I could recite it back word for word. And so people just thought that I was able to read and I could read really well. And it wasn't until they bought a new book and I hadn't held it, that they realized that I actually could.
Okay, it's
read
frozen.
at all. Oh, is it frozen again?
Just for
Oh
a
my
moment,
gosh.
yeah. I got you back though.
No worries. Could you hear that? I think it's still recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, by the time I got to secondary school, I had been told and convinced myself that I was dyslexic, that I was stupid, that whatever I was trying to share when I was younger it was oppressed. And so I just shut it off, just tried to not talk about the things that I knew and the things that I was seeing, especially my psychic abilities as well. Like that would freak people out the most. When I would know things, or I'd tell people about a dream that I'd had, and then it would happen at the school. And I remember once saying to a friend, "Oh, do you remember me telling you about the dream? Look, this is happening." And it's like their brains can't compute, right? Because it's so out of context of what we've been used to. So it wasn't until I was about 27 or 26 that I started to just get like these little activation codes, I like to call them now, just little reminders from spirit, little moments of inspiration, of synchronicity, of feelings that started to have me question a bit more about what was all that when I was a child, what was all that I'd switched off, and the abilities and the way that I was able to understand reality from all perspectives started to flood back in. And then, as I went through that journey, it was very abrupt, the awakening. It was like, okay, she's really on a dead end path right now. What can we do to shift the life? And so it ended with a relationship ending, no money in the bank, no job, no home, like all of my stuff, worldly possessions in boxes on my friend's living room floor. And I remember just looking up to the sky and going like, how could I have got this so wrong? And I had this voice inside me saying, now you're ready. And I'm like, ready for what? Ready to see. And from that moment onwards, it was just like, okay, here's everything that you've forgotten. We need to get you up to speed because you're on your purpose, and there's gateways that are starting to open. 2011, 2012 and beyond, like the next 30 years, this is a huge shift for humanity. And I spent a lot of time studying, researching, reading, absorbing all the different perspectives that everyone had about what awakening was. So I observed, okay, so this set of beings over here are sharing about the collapsing of time in 2012, and there's going to be aliens coming down to pick us up. Okay, great. So that's their perspective. And then over here, we've got, the end of days. And then over here, we've got the Mayan calendar. And I just kept getting this message. You have to understand all different perspectives to understand reality in neutrality. And that's the frequency that you're meant to hold. And so through the journey of that led on to a more sustainable career path for myself, which was moving into massage therapy. And there was a time with massage that I was just getting so many downloads for the clients. Like the Palladians would come in and they'd want me to do activations with their crown and do these little tones. And I'm in like this 5-star spa. They're having a massage and I'm like, like leaving these little tones. And then one day Spirit was just like, right, you're done. No more massage. You have to sell everything you own and we'll tell you what to do next. You have to leave the country you're living in. So I was living in Canada at the time and I had no idea what I was doing. And then from that went through a series of what I like to call a galactic shamanic initiations. And that's when the deeper work started to come through, which was the ability to bring through these different frequencies and start to affect my molecular structure of my own body and then my own reality. And that's what I went on to teach others. So it's been an interesting journey. And honestly, I feel as soon as I've like reached a level playing field, there's so much more that then comes in for us. I mean, it's infinite. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm.
Wow, thank you for sharing all of that. And there's so much there that I can relate to, from the, being young and having the imaginary friends and, just knowing things that other people don't know and feeling like an outcast and shutting it down and so many of those things. But what I really want to comment on here is your willingness to follow guidance, even when you had no idea, like, why am I leaving the country, or, you know, where, what's the purpose of me going here? You don't always know, but yet you, that willingness to follow and go anyway. And I think that's such a key for unlocking the door, because it's almost like, I feel like it's an initiation or a trust that gets to be established between yourself and the guides. And I myself, all of my moves as an adult have been guidance based. I haven't always known why I was going to a particular place, but there always is that reason. And so, would you say that you feel like that willingness to follow guidance opens the door for you to sort of like have that trust with guidance and then receive the bigger downloads or the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's also the trust that following these decisions at the time may lead us into less than desirable situations, and they can be extremely uncomfortable, and then the ego can be like, wow, I shouldn't have left my cozy space. And it's not till we go through the journey and continue knowing, no, I was told to make a leap, so I'm making a leap. Once we go through that, we're like, oh, I understand. So I'll give you a direct experience, so this relates to people. When I was told to leave Canada, I was shown, the online job and speaking and writing and like all this like beautiful stuff, right? So I'm like, okay, but I didn't know the how. I didn't know like how that was going to come through, but I knew deep in myself that there was something connected to me being online. And at the time I was petrified of speaking, by the way. I was just like, I couldn't even imagine doing this. So when I sold everything, and left, I thought that I was going to Central America to work with the crystalline grid. That's kind of like a little download that I got. And that on that journey, I guess things would be shown and be untold. What actually happened was something completely different to start. So the journey actually took me back to the UK to work with the family lines. And so once I got there, I resisted it, because who wants to deal with their family? Who wants to go in deep to the depths of their shadow and clear the mother wound, the father wound, the ancestral lines, all of the abuse, the traumas back 10, 20, 30, 40 generations, and then deal with the present set of circumstances of being this light being back in the family home, right? It's uncomfortable. But even in the face of that, I had to keep trusting that, okay, I'm trying to be this light worker over here, and I'm ignoring what is actually going to support me to be embodied in that role. And so when I went back, I resisted it, and it actually took a broken back for me to finally humble myself and fully listen to why I had been brought back. And once I surrendered even deeper, right, the leaving of the job and the country, that was one level of surrendering. I had to literally get stripped down to nothingness, to go deep into all of those areas of self, so that by the time I left and I took that trip to Central America, I was ready and it was aligned, and it has shifted the entire dynamics of the family, like in unrecognizable. And so what I will say is, people's biggest fear is taking these massive jumps and it being less than desirable, or almost seeming that it is worse to start off. And then the ego is like, well, I should have stayed where I was. Mm-hmm. But we've got to keep trusting that our soul knows exactly what we can handle and what we are here to create. Because as we clear the soul work, we come into alignment with the galactic work and those galactic missions, because there is nothing of density that's holding us back, but we've got to trust the experience of the journey and not see it that we've done something wrong or that we've been blindsided by spirit. We have to keep and even when it got to me going to Central America, I wasn't planning to go right away, because financially I was at ground zero. And I told myself, well, I need, a few £1,000s. So let's get the business done first. My guides are like, no, you just need to go. You just need to book your ticket. I'm like, I've got £300 in my account. And they're like, great, that's all you need. So there's a one-way ticket to Mexico for £300. I had £1 left in my bank account. And I was like, okay, this is another. And I said to them, you're making me do this because I'm going to share this story one day. And they said, well, yeah. You know, it was like, okay. So I bought the ticket. And within 3 weeks, which was the date that I'd set to go, I gave myself 3 weeks, there was £4,000 in my bank account.
Wow.
So the trust piece is the ability to make decisions on your intuition, taking that leap and being okay if it's less than desirable in the journey, but being trusting of that journey and going through the journey and continuing to go through that. And we will never be let down. But we have so much fear of letting go and taking those leaps. And I know that the last 10 years for me, some of the choices that I have been met with within my own journey were to challenge me beyond rational thought so that I could share that with others. Like, listen, I get it. I spent my last £300 on a plane ticket. I mean, that's ridiculous. But is it? It was the key that unlocked the most amount of abundance that I've received in my life that continues to flow in because I trusted in what this was sharing.
That's powerful. So powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And about the embodiment that happens when we are willing to work with the shadow parts that come up, you know, whether it's lack, like fear of not having what you need, that lack consciousness, or fear of the unknown, or, you know, any of that, not knowing what's going to happen once you take that guidance and then following through. And it's the unlocking that happens in really the trust. Again, it's going back to that trust piece, and where we expand, the container expands the more we trust, and then we're trusted with more from the universe, because it's goes both ways. And that's so important for people to know. Like, it really is time to face fears and not just sort of succumb to whatever's circling you. But to step into it and look at it rather than hiding, pulling the covers over and pretending or hoping that it'll just go away. It's there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want to talk to you about the New Earth paradigm. And I know that's a huge part of your work now, is what, I don't know if you call it creating the New Earth, or envisioning it, or designing it, co-creating. Tell us about your work with the New Earth.
Yeah, so something that is really like close to my heart is having us be as present as possible, because there's so much energy and emphasis that's gone into the future timeline of the golden cities, and, you know, everything miraculously is magical and it's all sorted out. That's great, and it's beautiful to hold on to that future vision, but the most amount of power that we have is here in this present moment. And we are creating, and, you know, I want to shift the word New Earth, because New Earth implies that, like, Gaia has distortions. Like, Gaia's perfect, she's great, she's happy. It's us that needs to come into alignment with how to harmonize with her. And so nature is a big teacher of that, because nature will bring up all of your stuff where you're not in alignment with yourself. And I've definitely had vast experiences of that, even these last couple of years as I've lived in Costa Rica. I mean, I'm in the jungle that's constantly transforming and evolving and growing and being chopped back. And it's so alive here, and she's so pristine. So we all have these incredible multidimensional gifts that come through us as we go through our awakening. It's like we have access to these deeper chambers of our cellular memory. We're able to, you know, pull in information and potentialities through the quantum. Yet the misalignment that I see most often is there's not the foundation set within the human body and within the root and the sacral. And so if we are collectively wanting to rise up into our divine power and create a sustainable co-creative experience where ourselves, each other, and the planet are all on equal level, what we're doing on a daily basis has a direct impact and influence on that. And it starts with our beliefs, it starts with our thoughts, it starts with the stories that we share, it starts with where our attention is going, it starts with what we're feeding, what we're putting energy into. And that can be really, really hard because there's so much frequency control that is all over, that's specifically designed to lower a person's consciousness, to lower a person's awareness of what reality is. And that's when all of these seemingly, mystical, magical gifts feel like they're out of reach. But we can experience a state of bliss every single day if we choose to. We can experience instant manifestation if we choose to. And we can experience our alignment to our soul path if we choose to. And so the more we get present and grounded within our own bodies, because most light workers are about 2 or 3 feet above their heads, the more we get grounded with our bodies and pay close attention to what our bodies need, and nutrition and food, water, sleep, schedules, all of that has such a huge influence on our frequency and our vibration. And so really the reality that we're creating is a reflection of our inner world, of what we're creating internally. I've had many memories being activated within me. Quite often I'll be kind of in dream space and I'll be going into different worlds, and then my guides will say, hey, you need to wake up and remember this. So I have seen what they call smart cities, where people can still live in mass population, but it feels like you're living in the jungle. And that's an evolution of humanity, because there's people that want to live with people. Most of us all want to run for the hills into the jungles and forests. But there, a lot of humanity, it's how can there be densely populated areas of the earth, but working with the vibrations and harmonizing with each other, with the frequencies. And so my guides told me they're called smart cities, and they're run on hydraulics, on water systems. And each building is a smart building. So it's eco-friendly, it's renewable energy. Every sort of balcony and an area has vegetation and green and plant life. So there's all these potentials that are coming in. And what has given me so much joy is over the last couple of years, I seem to be meeting all of these kind of multimillionaires that have funding, have access to a lot of money, and they're all going through their awakenings, and now they're building conscious businesses. They're building sustainable teams that are in harmony with the planet. And so, to get into the quantum physics of it, when we look at the co-creative experience of reality, we are kind of in a timeline split, right? And everyone's kind of oh my God, we're going to go this way, or we're going to go this way. Let's just wait and see what happens. That's giving our power away. What do we want to create? And we still vote every day with what are we spending our money on? We vote with our words, we vote with our stories, we vote with our choices, we vote with our beliefs, and we really vote with how we treat our bodies, right? It's very easy to do all this light work, DNA activations, when we're halfway out of our bodies, but then we go and eat a cheeseburger that's gonna make us feel dense. And by all means, go eat the cheeseburger, but set the frequency of that to resonate and harmonize with your body. I'm all for the human experience. Sometimes I drink a kombucha, and a little vegan chocolate cake, and it's okay, right? But if we're constantly doing that and we haven't got energy in our body, there's a misalignment there. So the body is ascension. Ascending in our bodies is helping us to create the frequency, sustain the frequency needed to create that new earth, because it's already here, right? And so we have mass buying power with our votes now. And, there's a lot of censorship, as people say on social media, but there's also a lot of power with mass petitions that are able to circulate the web and go viral. That's, we're standing up in numbers as a co-creative influence, we're voting this way, like this is what we want to create our planet to be. And so my job is to hold neutrality to that and to help guide others back to themselves in all areas of themselves and all areas of their lives, so that they can harmonize and equalize with who they are at a subatomic level, a cellular level, a physical level, an emotional level, a spiritual level, so that they can be the way showers for that new earth potential, but also they can be embodied in their bodies and hold the frequency of their higher self to come in, and that constant stream of consciousness that can come through us, because Source wants to experience realities through all of us. And now Source is like, okay, like we've experienced conflict and divide, we've experienced reality as duality. I wonder what it would feel like as neutrality and unity. And so collectively, those of us that are waking up are like, we have a desire for that. Like, oh yeah, let's experience reality in neutrality. What does that feel like? What is the experience of that? So this is an incredibly exciting time to be alive, even though the physical reality, remember, is the last thing to shift and it looks like absolute chaos. But when you study chaos theory, there is a divine perfection in chaos, and it harmonizes and it self-regulates and it organizes into a beautiful system. And so we are all part of that theory that's holding that higher frequency. There's probably quite a lot of information. Sorry, when I get going, I get many streams of energy. Like,
I love it. And you know what I love about what you just said is that it's really about the steps, because when we think about, okay, well, there are these smart cities in the new earth in the future, but what does that mean to me right now? And how you brought it back to, we're voting every day with what we purchase and what we put in our bodies and what we say and what we're creating in the world, thoughts. And, you know, with every part of us, we're always choosing what our reality is about. And we surround ourselves with that. And if we have this disconnect of, well, I want to be in the smart cities in the new earth and all, whatever all of that means to an individual, but we're consuming toxicity in multiple forms, you know, it takes a shift of consciousness to realize, wait, in order to get that alignment that I desire, I have to change some just basic physical, seemingly third dimensional things in order to tweak my alignment so that I can step into my own evolution. And I love that you make that, you know, accessible. So can you give me some more ideas of how, let's say, a viewer who's just starting to open up to this concept, what are some daily things that we can do to open up our ability to connect with the divine and our higher self and our mystical self and the higher dimensionals?
Yeah, I mean, some of the real basic but really powerful pieces that will, the mind will be like, really? Clean out your stuff, your cupboards, your foods, your fridge. Like, what's your stuff doing? Touch and hold everything that you own and feel into the vibration of it. And feel, is this serving me? Is this bringing me joy? Is this uplifting me? Is this, if I was to step into my squeaky brand new car washed version of myself where it's all shiny, like, is this a vibrational match to that? Is this supporting the person I am becoming? Okay, so the physical items that we have, when there's like clutter and an overwhelming of boxes that haven't been looked at for years, or maybe someone passed over and we have guilt to get rid of those prized possessions, but they're in a box for the last 10 years, let go. And so those physical items, the digital space, cleaning up the, you know, having a digital detox on the laptops and emails and phone and 5,000 photos, like clean with like a little toothbrush every single nook and cranny of the reality, and doing a body cleanse, listening to the body. Hey, if I was to set like a 30-day challenge for myself to really clean out my body, What do you need? And the body will tell you, I want to do a coconut water fast, I want to do a juice cleanse, or I want to just do whole foods, or I want to eat lots of this food and not much of this food. You know, and obviously break these things down in stages, because, you know, the mind loves familiarity and it gets stuck, right? And so when we try to do too much at the same time, we do 3 days and then it gets overwhelmed. It's like, oh, and then life takes over. So just pick one. You know what? I want to work on my body right now. Great. Do that. I want to work on my house right now. Great. Do that. So anything that is in your reality, right? Just looking at, you know, creating yourself and the space around you and everything that you are connected to, like a real sacred ceremony, like a temple. Because what a lot of light workers do is they box 3D over here and they box 5D over here as some kind of holy land, right? It's like, oh, we'll just magically get to 5D. There's no destination with 5D. We're multidimensional. We're having all of the experiences simultaneously. It's just our consciousness that's shut down to the ability to receive ourselves multidimensionally. So we're having our experience in 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D, 12D, 27D, and 3D, and 2D, and 4D, right? So we just want to merge those. So in the density that we have, we want to create space. So as we're creating space in, you know, energetically, if you're having energy work, physically, and with the foods, make sure that you're filling back in with light, filling back in with gold, liquid plasma energy, because the temptation can be of clearing. And then guess what? When we don't fill back in with who we are, more of the stuff, it's like we clear a room, right, of all the boxes, like energy. And it's like we don't fill it with light. Oh, look, there's space now. Okay, great. Let's put these boxes here. So some of those pieces, and you know, I do this every 3 to 6 months. I go through a fine tooth comb. Money as well. This isn't a whole other thing over here, but money leaks. You know, what are you paying subscriptions for that you're not using? What are you paying interest on that maybe you could look at it and make a few tweaks and get a better rate, get a better deal? Like, what's a budget? What do you want to create in your reality? And just really looking at money as money wants to support us. It's a form of energy. It's playful. It's light. And so just looking at where are those leaks, you know, where are our leaks? Also paying attention to, you know, how we feel after speaking to people. Are we feeling uplifted, or are we feeling a bit drained? Do we need to have healthier boundaries? Do we need to not be available all the time? Because when we're deeply empathic, we just want everyone to feel what we're feeling, which is bliss and love. But sometimes having a boundary in place helps the people that maybe were holding on or needing something from us. It helps them resolve their own issues. It's like, oh no, I've dealt with it. Whereas when we're always available, that can be draining on our system. So these are just some of like the key pieces that they really are transformational, and it's simple. All this stuff is really simple.
I love that. I love everything you just shared. And I'm all about the, you know, the clutter clearing, the closet clearing, the physical clearing. I think it's all so important, and it's so accessible. You know, you can start with one section of one room and, you know, and one thing that you eat, you know, or you could take it all on, but in order not to get overwhelmed, just baby steps. And it really is so powerful to look at, and there's things in our environment we don't see anymore because we filter them out because they're clutter, like you said. And to become keenly aware of each of the items in our lives and in our bodies and in our minds and our spirits. I think that's such powerful advice. Thank you for that. So I wanted to talk to you about the Haven Collective that you've created. What is the Haven Collective?
The Haven Collective is a space of transformation through community and frequency and activation, and really coming together for the purposes of co-creation. So it's a space to drop into on a monthly basis, to be elevated, to awaken to one's own potential, to be reminded that maybe there's a bit of a day where, you know, things are getting on top of us and we're feeling kind of like a bit emotional, or some things, we drop into the space and it's an instant elevation. And so, sound healing as well, and the frequencies of sound will be the future medicine. And so I program the live calls with specific facilitators that come in and run sound healing journeys as well. And then also when I'm running the live calls once a month, we bring through different multidimensional frequencies. So I work with the diamond ray star beings, and I also work with the ancestors and elders and the angelic realms and my higher self. And so there's a collection, a mirage of different tonal sounds that come through. So quite often it will sound, like a very indigenous ceremony song that comes in to really like activate that root and that sacral. And then we go up into the higher frequencies, which is where we're kind of working at reprogramming some of the layers of the subatomic parts of the body, and also allowing the DNA to vibrate at those higher frequencies. Because the 12 strands, the 2 strands of DNA that we have in our physical bodies, right, they help us to navigate this, but the other strands of DNA, they can only be activated through a higher frequency, because that's where they resonate, and that's where that's able to gift us access to these higher parts of ourselves, or my guides are saying more expanded parts of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so the Haven, it was in response to the 25 live programs that I'd ran over the last 4 years. And I was getting to a point where I'm like, I'm running out of names. And my guides were like, well, it's all frequency. It doesn't matter what you call it. And what I was finding is there was great momentum, and there was a beautiful groups of beings coming together. And we'd have a start date, but then we'd have an end date. And then it would fizzle. And so about a year ago, my guide said that you're going to create an ongoing container. So it's just ongoing. It's a journey. It's a space to drop into oneself through the combined consciousness of us as a group. So as the platform builds, the intentions that we're setting each month are amplified with each other. So there's a lot of like fun, juicy quantum physics that are like taught as well, around amplifying, collective group consciousness. And we do a lot of light work around the planet as well. So all the shifts that we're making with ourselves, we fill back in with light, and then we anchor that into the crystalline grid and all the way around to the planet and to the 7 billion people. So my desire is to build it up to at least 1,000, if not more. And just really feeling the vibrations of all of us coming together in that space. So yeah.
Wow, awesome. So it's more or less a membership type of container.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, awesome. I love that. You do so many things. And one thing that I'm really inspired by with you, Zoe, is your presence. And you mentioned that from the beginning about being embodied. It's about presence. And I do feel like each time I've talked to you, you bring your full presence. You just are who you are, and you're totally, you're very, I don't have a better word for it than present, but I can feel that, and I appreciate it. And I love what a powerful example of that you are. So thank you for your presence.
Thank you. What a beautiful compliment. Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And authentic, I really get authenticity from you.
Mm-hmm. I try.
Yeah. And just like in the beginning, with the screen freezing, like, we can laugh at that. It's like, oh no, it's just part of life, it happens. You have a wonderful gift that you're offering us called DNA Crystalline Light Code Activation. Would you share about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a 60-minute journey that's set to binaural beats to take you on a journey into yourself, to ground, to call in the different light codes, and to really kind of call in a deeper sense of self. And so this is very similar to how I work in the Haven Collective as well. And so there's always like a guided journey, and then there'll be different frequencies and tones that will come through, and to just really expand our consciousness, open our hearts, feel grounded, feel embodied in our bodies, and feel elevated. As I was sharing before, there's so much that's going on right now with, the shifting and changing and mergings of experiences, that's really important to keep our bodies like super light and cleaned, and keep our frequencies as high as we can, because it makes such a difference to our manifestation power and our collective co-creative power and everything that we're here to embody as light workers. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful journey. My gift to this community and those listening, and really enjoy it and sink in.
Wonderful. Yes, I look forward to listening to that. Thank you for your generosity and sharing that. And as we're coming to the end of our hour, what would you like to share that maybe we didn't touch into, that you feel like is relevant right now? Is there anything we've missed that you'd like to talk about?
Well, it's interesting what my higher self is showing me as a message is just be real fluid like water, be really flow like water. And there's so much attachment to what's not happening and what's not working out and when's something going to shift. It's like, just flow, just pivot, redirect. When you get a river and it's going down and there's a big boulder in the middle, it doesn't sit there contemplating and thinking, wow, what are we going to do now? It just splits and it moves around. And so leaning in to what you are being shown within your body and trusting that. And some of these pieces that I was sharing today with the cleansing, clearing, and purifying process of everything in your reality is really going to sustain you to be able to hold the frequencies that are coming in. Because if we were to receive all of the downloads right away, it would fry our brain cells. And that's why actually there's a lot of people that end up with kind of like, mental health issues, or, you see them and they're not quite there. It's because like their chakras are all blown. They've been blasted wide open too fast. And so we want to be honoring ourselves and everything in our reality like a beautiful temple, like a pristine temple. And if the human does want to have a little something, a chocolate cake or something like that, just set the frequency, just set the intention, work with your healing hands, bless everything like love, joy, abundance, gratitude into your water. Full 10 minutes after eating your food, really digesting and just really being mindful of what are you focusing on? What are the stories? Because the stories generate an emotional and energetic charge. And in quantum physics, that's then the attention starts going into that direction. So command who you know you to be in yourself into the present reality.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're creating it all the time with our words, our thoughts, our actions. So thank you for that reminder. And that, yeah, I think it really is important too for people to know that we have choice. We always have choice. And it's not that you can't have what you want. It's that you get to, like you said, bring it into your frequency and give it the life and the intentionality that that you want your body to have. And then I think that too, like just bringing that level of intentionality also changes our habits. If we have some negative habits, which most humans do, right? When we approach them with intention and willingness to look at where they're coming from and why, what are they driving us and why are we allowing that, then they tend to change or balance out or harmonize on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as we fill back in with more of who we are by clearing out who we're not, some of those tendencies, they just fall away. People actually don't believe me when I tell them that I used to smoke cigarettes. I smoked for 15 years. I drank alcohol every day for at least 10 years. I drank like 5 espressos a day. I worked 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, sometimes 80 hours. And I would do drugs on the weekend to like get over the week. I was in catering and hospitality, and I was severely underweight and had body dysmorphia. right? And it's like, when I think about like that version of me, I always knew when I was her that this version was inside. I felt her. I was like, there's a non-smoking version of me. And it's like I couldn't access her. So as I went through my awakening, it's like naturally, like the things, I was like, oh, there's me and cigarettes. It's like, this doesn't feel, I honestly feel that I've never smoked before. It's
Wow.
like I can't even imagine doing that, because we go through the death and rebirth process. And so this cleaning and purification with the physical things and stuff like that really starts to help to move that energy. We want to be moving energy, moving.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that, because, for anybody watching that's like, oh, you were probably always this beautiful light and never had a bad habit in your life.
No, quite the opposite.
I love that and that, I've heard this from other people. I fortunately was never a smoker, but I know that, from what I know, it's very difficult it's very, what's the word? Addictive. But I have heard other stories of people simply making a new choice and a new commitment, and it just fell away. And it's a rare story, but it is a story that you can tell that and receive for yourself, if somebody's, whether it's smoking or any other habit that you might desire to release. It can happen that way, especially when you're opening up. And I love that you said, and filling yourself with new light, opening up those spaces, releasing what's no longer serving you, and bringing in the new light, so that there's an upgrade happening.
Yeah. Aho.
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 Yes, indeed. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end there. And I just am so grateful for you, Zoe, and your presence and everything you shared. And I absolutely love the grounded, actionable tips and ideas that you presented today, because anybody could watch this and implement multiple things from what you said. And that's my challenge to everyone, is to implement at least one thing from what Zoe shared today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's everything that I've done that really has supported so much, because I love flying into the multidimensional realms, but I wasn't able to do that, when I had to take care of my human. She needed taking care of, right? And now all of that beautiful light code energy just comes in. It's within me, right? There's no leaving of the body, because it's like I've created a reality where I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel heard, and I feel grounded within myself. So I don't have to go traveling off into the different dimensions. It's here. I have these experiences like every day. So
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for sharing, for your generosity.
Thanks
I
for having
appreciate you
me.
so much.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Blessings.
Blessings. And to everyone, namaste. Thank you so much for watching.